Hey, nappy friend. Welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight, we travel not just through time, but into a city that is waking up from a long, dreamless sleep. A city of stone and ambition called Florence. You can almost feel the cool morning air on your skin, carrying the faint, distant scent of baking bread and the even fainter, more intriguing scent of wet marble dust and linseed oil. It's a place of hushed potential, where the gray stone of medieval towers still dominates the skyline. But something new is stirring in the workshops and the counting houses. Imagine the gentle clinking of a goldsmith's hammer, the soft scrape of a charcoal stick on thick, textured paper, the low murmur of merchants arguing over the price of wool. You're perfectly safe here, wrapped in your own time, in your own comfortable space. You probably wouldn't survive the actual sanitation standards of the 15th century, but here, you can enjoy all the beauty without any of the bubonic plague. It's the perfect arrangement. So, before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? And as you settle in, feel free to gently type in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's a quiet, lovely way to see how our sleepy community stretches all across the globe. A little constellation of cozy, restful minds. So, dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in Nappy community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. The year isn't important, not exactly. Let's just say it's the early part of the 1400s, a time when the memory of the Great Plague is still a living scar on the city's soul. And you are Alessandro, a young man, an apprentice. Your hands are perpetually stained with pigments, and your fingernails are caked with a fine gray dust from clay. You exist in a world defined by the bell tower of the still unfinished cathedral, the Santa Maria del Fiore. Its tolling marks your waking, your working, your brief moments of rest. Your world, your bottega, the workshop of your master, is a small universe of familiar sensations. The earthy smell of gesso, a mix of animal skin glue and plaster, a foundational scent of your life. The sharp tang of turpentine, the sweet, heavy perfume of linseed oil used to bind powdered colors into paint. Before you can even think of painting, you must first prepare the surface. Your master favors poplar panels, and the preparation is a ritual in itself. You spend days applying layer after layer of gesso. First, the rough layers, the gesso grosso, filling the grain of the wood. Then comes the gesso sotto, a finer, smoother plaster, applied in as many as 15 thin coats. Each layer must dry perfectly before the next is applied. After the final coat, the real work begins, the sanding. You use dried shark skin, a natural sandpaper, rubbing the surface for hours back and forth in gentle circles until the panel is as smooth and white and luminous as ivory. It is a task of infinite patience, but you understand its importance. The panel is the foundation. Any imperfection here will show through the final painting, a ghost of a flaw that can never be erased. Your master is a good man, a member of the guild. He paints what is asked. Virgins with serene golden halos, crucifixions with politely suffering saints. His figures are elegant, long, and float in a golden void untethered to the messy, solid earth. This is the art of the time, the international Gothic style. It is beautiful, it is pious, and it is, you secretly think, a little bit repetitive. You spend your days grinding colors. This is the apprentice's primary job. You take a chunk of lapis lazuli, a stone more expensive than gold, and with a glass muller, you grind it on a porphyry slab, back and forth for hours, until it becomes a powder so fine it seems to float. The repetitive motion makes your shoulder ache, a dull, familiar burn, but you focus on the transformation. The stone slowly yields its soul, turning from a rock into pure celestial blue, the color of heaven itself. This will become the Virgin's iconic blue robe. It's a hypnotic, meditative task, perfect for a mind that is beginning to drift and wander. Florence, your home, is a city built on wool. The most powerful guild, the Arte della Lana, controls the city's economic lifeblood. You see their wealth everywhere, in the grand civic buildings and the fine clothes of the merchants who stride through the Piazza della Signoria. Historians love to point this out, that Florence's artistic explosion was funded not by kings, but by the profoundly practical, bourgeois business of turning fleece into cloth. You, however, are more familiar with the less glamorous side of this industry. When the wind shifts, it brings the smell from the Arno River, where the tanners and dyers work. It's a pungent chemical stink, a reminder of the raw, messy work that underpins all this piety and wealth. You walk home through streets that are narrow and shadowed, the cobblestones uneven beneath your thin leather shoes. You pass shoemakers crafting shoes with points so long and absurd they have to be curled back and tied to the ankle. You wonder how anyone walks in them without tripping over their own sense of importance. It's a quiet joke you keep to yourself. In the evenings, you and the other apprentices gather, and the talk is of guild rules, the quality of pigments from Flanders, and the endless gaping hole in the roof of the cathedral where a dome is supposed to be. Everyone agrees it's an impossible task. No one has built a dome that large since the ancient Romans. There are whispers, too, of a family of bankers, the Medici. They are not old nobility. Their money is new, and some say tainted by the sin of usury. But they are becoming powerful. You hear their names spoken with a mixture of awe and suspicion. They are just a name, a distant force. You have no idea that this name, this family, is about to pull the thread that will unravel your entire world and weave it back together into something so new, so brilliant, it will leave the world breathless. But for now, you are just Alessandro. Your greatest concern is grinding the lapis just right and not cracking the temper panel you so carefully prepared. Historians still debate whether the average person in your position felt the tectonic plates of history shifting beneath their feet, or if they were simply focused on the next meal. Tonight, as you lie on your simple straw mattress, the answer is clear. You are thinking about sleep. Section 2. The change, when it comes, arrives not with a thunderclap, but with the quiet rustle of expensive parchment. A man dressed in sober but clearly costly wool, a man who is not a priest or a guild official, enters the bottega. An immediate silence falls over the workshop, the usual sounds of sanding and mixing replaced by a tense stillness. He doesn't look at the serene Madonnas on the walls. His eyes, sharp and calculating like a man used to weighing gold, scan the workshop itself, the tools, the quality of the light, the discipline of the apprentices. He represents the Medici Bank, Specifically, he is an agent for Cosimo de' Medici, the head of the family. You and the other apprentices try to look busy and important, suddenly aware of the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams, of the smudges on your own tunics. He unrolls a contract onto a workbench, the parchment making a crisp, authoritative sound. Your master, a man usually confident and jovial, suddenly seems smaller, his posture deferential. The agent's voice is quiet, but carries an immense weight. The commission is not for a standard altarpiece. It's for a series of sculptures for the garden of a new palace the Medici are building. And the instructions are strange. The patron, this Cosimo, does not want the figures to be in the modern style. He wants them made all'antica, in the ancient style. He wants the strength and realism of the old Roman statues that are sometimes dug up in fields outside the city. He wants muscle and sinew, emotion, figures that look like they could draw breath and step off their pedestals. Your master clears his throat, a nervous sound. All'antica, he repeats, the words foreign on his tongue. But, Master Agent, such figures, they are the work of pagans. We are good Christians here. The agent offers a thin, placating smile. Of course, Master. The piety of your workshop is well known. The Lord Cosimo does not wish for idols. He wishes to revive the virtue of the ancients, their strength, their civic pride, qualities that honor God and our city. He is merely asking for saints and heroes who look as though they have the fortitude to be saints and heroes. It is a masterful piece of rhetoric, reframing a radical artistic break as an act of piety. This is a profound shock. To your master, the art of the ancients was the work of people who lived before the grace of God. To imitate it feels wrong, a little dangerous. But the fee offered is substantial, and one does not simply refuse the Medici. As a little joke you'll never tell anyone, it feels like being asked to cook a meal using a recipe from a forgotten, possibly heretical language. The money is good, but you're not quite sure what you're making. The agent also specifies something else that is becoming a common practice with wealthy patrons. The Medici will provide the most expensive materials directly. A block of pure white marble from Carrara, the finest pigments, the gold leaf for any gilding. This is a well-known historical fact. The cost of the raw materials for a major artwork could often far exceed the fee paid to the artist for their labor. It was a way for the patron to control the quality and, let's be honest, to show off. Not only did I hire the best artist, the work screams, I bought him the best toys to play with. So your world begins to shift. Your master, after days of quiet contemplation and anxious sketching, accepts. He starts to look at the human body differently. He asks you to pose not in a stylized, graceful posture of a saint, but to stand naturally, to shift your weight, to make a fist. No, no, he says in frustration, not like you're waiting for a vision from heaven, like you're waiting for the butcher to give you your change. He is trying to understand how a body occupies space, how muscle works beneath the skin. He is rediscovering a language of art that had been dormant for 1,000 years. You see this happening all over Florence. The money from the Medici Bank is a golden river flowing into the city's workshops, and with it comes this new, demanding taste. Other patrons, wanting to emulate the city's most powerful family, begin to ask for the same thing. Suddenly, being a good artist isn't just about mastering the techniques passed down through the guild. It's about innovation, It's about looking at the world with fresh eyes. Historians have long debated the true motives of Cosimo de' Medici. Was his patronage a genuine expression of a pious and intellectual soul, a true love for beauty and philosophy? Or was it an incredibly shrewd political maneuver, a way to launder his banking fortune into cultural prestige and political power, making his family indispensable to the city's fame and glory? Perhaps it was both. But from your perspective, down here amidst the clay dust and charcoal, the motive is less important than the result. The result is that your job has become infinitely more interesting. You are sent to the market, not just to buy bread, but to sketch the faces of the farmers, the tension in a butcher's arm as he cleaves meat. The world itself has become your textbook. One day, an old Roman coin is brought into the workshop, part of a collection Cosimo is amassing. It shows the head of an emperor. It's not a symbol like the face of a saint. It's a portrait. The man has a broken nose, wrinkles around his eyes, a look of weary command. He looks like a real person. A person of power, yes, but a man of flesh and blood. Looking at it, you feel a quiet thrill run through you. You are being asked not just to decorate the world, but to capture it. The call to adventure has been sounded, and it smells like old bronze and new money. You just hope your master knows what he's doing, because it feels like everyone is making up the rules as they go along. Your master's attempts at the ancient style are noble but hesitant. He is a good painter, but his mind is still conditioned by the gentle curves and divine detachment of the Gothic world. To truly understand this new language, you need a new teacher. And in Florence, when you speak of sculpture that feels alive, you speak of one man, Donatello. You are not formally apprenticed to him. Your master would never allow such a slight. Instead, you are loaned to a project he is overseeing, some decorative work on the exterior of the Orson Michel Church. It's a clever arrangement that allows you to be near the sun without getting burned. The Orson Michel itself is a microcosm of Florence's civic pride and rivalry. A former grain market turned church, its exterior niches were assigned to the city's various guilds, each one commissioning a statue of their patron saint. It's an ongoing artistic competition in stone and bronze. You see the other statues, beautifully crafted, but still locked in the graceful, slightly vacant poses of the old style. And then you see where Donatello is working. To be near his work is to be near something unsettling and powerful. He is not like your master. Where your master is pious and predictable, Donatello is famously prickly, intense, and terrifyingly talented. There are stories of him smashing a nearly finished work to pieces because a patron was being too critical. You keep your head down, moving scaffolding, mixing plaster, and watching, always watching. You see him working on his St. George, a marble statue for the Armorers Guild. This is not a serene, floating saint. This is a young warrior. His brow is furrowed with anxiety. His body is tensed for a fight. He looks like a real young man, burdened by a terrible responsibility. Donatello has captured a moment of psychological truth, not just divine allegory. You watch him argue with the stone itself, his chisel striking with a force that seems both creative and violent. He's not just removing marble, he's liberating a figure from within it. To you, who has only known saints to look benevolently bored, this is a revelation. It feels like the statues are judging you, not the other way around. Then you get a glimpse of something even more shocking. In the privacy of a Medici courtyard, you see the statue that will become his most famous and controversial work, his bronze David. Here, history is being made, and it is profoundly strange. It is the first free, standing nude sculpture created in Europe since antiquity, a truly landmark event. But you are not thinking about its historical significance. You are thinking that it is a statue of a slender, almost feminine-looking boy, naked except for boots and a shepherd's hat, standing triumphantly on the severed head of Goliath. His pose is relaxed, almost nonchalant. The sun glints off the polished bronze, making the skin seem warm and alive. He is beautiful, but it is a soft, languid beauty that feels deeply personal and mysterious. The statue is bewildering. It is a religious subject, but it feels pagan. It is heroic, but also strangely sensual. You hear the whispers. What does it mean? Why is he naked? Why does he look like that? Historians today still argue fiercely over the statue's meaning. Is it a political allegory for Florence's victory over Milan? A celebration of civic virtue? Or is it a more personal coded work reflecting Donatello's own humanist ideas and perhaps even his personal life? The debate is endless, which is likely just how Donatello would have wanted it. What you learn from Donatello isn't a technique. You can't learn his genius. What you learn is an attitude. You learn that art can be difficult. It can be unsettling. It doesn't have to provide easy, pious answers. It can ask troubling questions. You watch him argue with the bronze founders, obsess over the chemical composition of the patina, and shout at an assistant for a misplaced tool. He is not a gentle muse. He is a volcano of creation. One of the more eccentric and well-documented things about him is this intensity, his terribilita of fearsome awesomeness. While your old master worried about pleasing the patron, Donatello seems to believe the patron is lucky to have him. He treats the Medici not as masters, but as collaborators who are fortunate enough to be funding his vision. It's an arrogance that would have been unthinkable a generation earlier. But in this new climate, genius is becoming its own form of nobility. You return to your master's workshop in the evenings, a different person. The peaceful Madonnas on the walls now look blank, anemic. You have stood in the shadow of a new kind of creation, and it has changed the way you see the world. You had a mentor who taught you craft. In Donatello, you have found a mentor who has shown you what art can do. It can challenge, it can disturb, and it can capture the messy, beautiful, terrifying truth of being human. You try to capture some of that tension in your own charcoal sketches at night, and for the first time, the figures on your page begin to have weight. They begin to look like they have secrets. The influence of the Medici and the genius of Donatello are like two powerful currents, and you are caught in their confluence. But there is a third current, one that is quieter, but in many ways more profound. It is the current of ideas. Cosimo de' Medici is not just collecting art. As you heard it said, he is collecting minds. He establishes an informal academy, a gathering of the city's greatest thinkers, poets, and scholars who meet in his palace or in the pleasant shade of a garden at one of his country villas. And through your workshop's connection to the family, you are sometimes sent there on errands, a silent witness to a revolution of the mind. You walk through the gates of the Palazzo Medici on the Via Larga, delivering a small painted panel or a design for your master. You are meant to be invisible, a humble craftsman. But you keep your ears open. The palace itself is a statement. Unlike the old fortified towers of the established nobility, this is open, elegant, rational. Inside, you enter a world that is a sensory overload of newness. You see rich Flemish tapestries, heavy with thread of gold, depicting scenes that are not religious but mythological. The air smells of cut flowers, beeswax polish, and old parchment. And you hear them talking. Men like Niccolo de Niccoli, a tireless book hunter, and Poggio Bracciolini, a papal secretary who quite literally unearthed the lost works of ancient Rome from dusty monastery libraries across Europe. This is the famous, well-documented project of the early humanists, the recovery of classical knowledge. Poggio, for instance, discovered a complete manuscript of Lucretius's On the Nature of Things, a poem that describes the universe in purely materialistic atomic terms, with no mention of gods or divine plans. Finding this was like finding a scientific textbook written by an alien civilization. You see these men huddled around a newly acquired manuscript, their faces glowing with an excitement that is almost religious. You see the books themselves, the beautiful crisp paper, the elegant humanist script, the vibrant illuminations in the margins. They are not just containers of ideas, they are works of art in themselves. They are reading Cicero on rhetoric, Vitruvius on architecture, Plato on philosophy. You hear them discussing Plato's theory of ideal forms, the idea that the physical world is just a shadow of a perfect, eternal reality. You don't grasp the complex philosophy, but the concept resonates with you as an artist. Is it not your job to look at an imperfect man and paint the ideal man, to capture the perfect form of virtue or strength? The content of these books is world-altering. For 1,000 years, the purpose of life was understood to be salvation, the glory of God. These ancient pagan texts speak of something else, the glory of man. They celebrate civic virtue, personal achievement, the power of human reason, and the beauty of the physical world. It's an idea so powerful, so intoxicating, and so dangerous to the established order that it feels like a secret you're not supposed to know. Of course, one of the more curious, almost forgotten footnotes of this period is how often these early humanists got it wrong. Their Latin was sometimes shaky, their understanding of historical context was limited. They would occasionally misinterpret a text or conflate two different authors, creating a hybrid philosophy that never actually existed in ancient Rome. But in a way, these creative misunderstandings were just as important as the accurate translations. They were filtering ancient thought through their own 15th century minds, creating something entirely new in the process. This is something historians of ideas love to debate. Was the Renaissance a true rebirth of antiquity, or was it a beautiful, elaborate, and highly creative misreading of it? You don't understand all of their philosophical arguments, of course, but you understand the feeling in the room. It is a feeling of boundless possibility. It's the feeling that you are living not at the end of time, but at a new beginning. This new philosophy is called humanism, and it infects everything. It's why a banker wants a statue that looks like a Roman god, why a painter is suddenly interested in anatomy, why an architect is studying the proportions of the Pantheon. You start to see the connections. Donatello's unsettlingly human saints? That's humanism. The desire to sign your name to your work, a practice that was once considered an act of prideful sin. That's humanism. The belief that creating a beautiful building or a moving poem is itself a form of piety, a way of honoring God by celebrating his greatest creation, mankind. Pure humanism. You feel as though you've stumbled into the engine room of the era. The artists and the patrons get the glory, but the fuel for this whole incredible machine is these strange pagan ideas from forgotten books. It's a heady, thrilling thing to witness. You may not be a scholar, but you are an artist. And you realize your job isn't just to make things. It's to give form to these new electrifying ideas. The world is no longer a valley of tears to be endured, but a magnificent stage upon which humans can achieve greatness. And you have a front row seat. The new ideas of humanism are elegant and inspiring, but making them real is a messy, difficult, and often dangerous business. Nothing makes this clearer to you than the process of casting a large-scale bronze statue. The Medici, in their quest to revive the glories of ancient Rome, have commissioned several. Your workshop is tasked with assisting a master founder, and you are thrust from the quiet, intellectual world of humanist gardens into the loud, fiery, and industrial hell of a foundry. The process is called the lost wax method, a technique known to the ancients and painstakingly rediscovered. It's a well-documented and incredibly complex procedure. First, you and the other assistants create a rough core out of clay, the general shape of the statue. Over this, you model the final statue in a thick layer of beeswax, the smell filling the workshop, carving every detail with perfect precision. The curl of a lock of hair, the nail on a finger, the fold of a robe. This is the stage where the artistry happens, a slow, meticulous process. Then, you cover the entire wax model in a heavy shroud of plaster and clay, leaving a network of channels and vents. This is the mold. Once it's hardened, the whole enormous thing is heated. The wax inside melts and runs out through the channels, hence, lost wax. What's left is a hollow space between the inner core and the outer mold, a perfect negative of the statue. The theory is simple. The practice is terrifying. The day of the pour is a day of high drama. The furnace roars for hours, a dragon-breathing heat that you can feel from 50 paces away. The air grows thick with toxic fumes from the melting bronze, a cocktail of copper and tin. This is a side of the Renaissance no one paints, the industrial hazards. A curious and grim fact is that the life expectancy of a master founder was not high. The constant exposure to heavy metal fumes was a slow poison. You tie a damp cloth over your face, a useless gesture against the acrid smoke. The molten bronze glows with a terrifying white-hot light. The master founder, a man with burned scars on his arms and a permanently scorched expression, directs the flow. The crucible, a massive ceramic pot holding the liquid metal, is hoisted by a crane. It is a moment of extreme danger. If the crucible cracks, if the crane fails, liquid fire will rain down on everyone. You watch as the molten bronze is poured into the mold. It fills the void left by the wax, a river of fire flowing into the shape of a man. And then comes the waiting. The bronze must cool slowly, for days. If it cools too fast, it will crack. If air bubbles were trapped, the casting will be flawed. The financial stakes are immense. The bronze alone costs a fortune, all paid for by the patron. A failure is a disaster, both artistically and financially. It's the ultimate test. In your case, the test ends in partial failure. When the outer mold is finally chipped away days later, there is a moment of held breath, then a collective groan. The statue is revealed, but one of the legs has not filled completely. The molten bronze cooled too quickly in that section, perhaps due to a sudden draft in the foundry. It's a gaping, ugly flaw. The master founder curses, the patron's agent looks grim, and a cloud of despair descends on the workshop. Historians and art critics often talk about the genius of a master like Donatello or Ghiberti, but they sometimes forget to debate how much of that genius was reliant on the anonymous, uncredited brilliance of the foundry workers, the men who knew the precise alchemy of the metals, the exact temperature of the pour, the secret art of making a mold that could withstand the thermal shock. A sculptor was only as good as his caster. This failure becomes your ordeal. The statue must be repaired. It requires a delicate, highly skilled process of patching where a new piece is cast and welded onto the original. It's during this painstaking repair work, filing down the bronze, matching the patina, that you learn the true nature of this art. It's not just divine inspiration. It's metallurgy, it's chemistry, it's hard, physical, unforgiving labor. It's about overcoming failure with grit and ingenuity. When the repair is finally seamlessly done, you feel a pride deeper than you've ever felt just grinding colors. You haven't just helped make a pretty thing. You have wrestled with the unforgiving nature of the physical world, and through sweat and fire and skill, you have won. This, you realize, is the real substance behind the elegant humanist ideals, the sheer, stubborn, brilliant work of making them manifest. After the heat and fury of the bronze foundry, your next lesson feels clean, quiet, and cerebral. But it is no less revolutionary. While Donatello was teaching Florence how to sculpt the human soul, another genius, Filippo Brunelleschi, was teaching the city how to see. You are assigned to a team of painters decorating a chapel, and the master in charge is obsessed with a new technique, a science of painting that he has learned from studying Brunelleschi's work. This science is called linear perspective. For centuries, paintings were spiritually organized. The most important figures were the largest, regardless of where they were in the scene. A saint might be bigger than a mountain if he was more significant. The background was often a flat golden sheet, a divine space outside of time. What Brunelleschi did was to turn a painting into a window. He created a system for producing a perfect, mathematically sound illusion of three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface. The core principle, as it's explained to you, is both simple and mind-bending. You establish a horizon line and a single vanishing point. Then, all the parallel lines in your scene, the edges of buildings, the tiles on a floor, the tops of trees, must converge at that single point. It sounds like a trick, a game. But when you do it, the effect is magical. The flat surface of the wood panel suddenly opens up. It has depth. It feels like you could step right into it. This is, of course, the famous story of Brunelleschi's revolutionary discovery. History tells of his celebrated experiment where he painted the Florentine baptistry on a panel with a hole in it. A viewer would look through the hole from behind the panel at a mirror, which would reflect the painting. The illusion was so perfect that the painted image was indistinguishable from the real building. It was a mic drop moment for art history. Your master makes you practice. You draw cubes, colonnades, and piazzas, all your lines receding obediently to the vanishing point. You learn to use the tools, the T-square, the sharp calipers, the long piece of string coated in charcoal dust that you snap against the wall to create a perfect underdrawing, or synopia, for a fresco. At first, it feels rigid and unnatural, like you're plotting a map instead of making art. You think with some irony that you're being taught how to draw God's creation by using the cold, hard rules of a banker's ledger book. But then, you begin to see the power in it. You are no longer just illustrating a story. You are building a world for that story to happen in. The application of this is exhilarating. You work on a fresco of the Annunciation. Instead of placing Mary and the angel Gabriel in a golden void, you construct a room for them. A tiled floor recedes into the distance, its grid providing a perfect sense of space. A window on the back wall looks out onto a tiny, distant landscape. The figures now have a place to be. They have weight and presence. They exist in a world that looks just like yours, which makes the miracle of the event feel more immediate, more real. A curious, whispered secret among some artists of the time was the use of optical devices to help achieve this realism. Some historians of science and art debate whether some painters were using a camera obscura, a dark box with a small hole that projects an inverted image of the outside world onto a surface. It would have been considered a form of cheating, a mechanical crutch for a lack of true skill, and its use would have been a closely guarded secret. It's a fascinating theory that blurs the line between art, science, and a little bit of clever trickery. You become adept at the new technique. You are tasked with painting a row of columns in the background of a large fresco. You snap a chalk line, mark your vanishing point, and carefully render the pillars, each one smaller and closer together as they recede. When you step back, the effect is breathtaking. You have created a perfect illusion. You feel a jolt of power. This is a kind of magic, but it is a rational magic. It's the magic of geometry and optics. You realize that this changes the relationship between the viewer and the painting. The viewer is no longer just a passive observer of a holy symbol. The painting now has an ideal viewing point, a place where the illusion is perfect. The painting organizes the viewer's gaze, puts them in their place. It presumes a single, rational observer. It presumes a humanist. You are not just painting a picture. You are painting a new way of looking at the world, a world that is ordered, measurable, and understandable by the human mind. And you, Alessandro, are one of its first architects. The city of Florence, under the golden glow of Medici patronage, feels invincible. The workshops are buzzing. The humanists are debating, and the very air seems to crackle with the energy of creation. You have begun to feel a sense of security in this new world. You have found your footing, your skills are valued, and the future seems like a grand sunlit piazza drawn in perfect perspective. And then the floor falls out. The foundation of your world, the source of all this vibrant energy, is suddenly ripped away. In the year 1433, Cosimo de' Medici is arrested. The news spreads through the city like a fever. At first, it's just a rumor whispered in the market, a knot of anxious merchants talking in hushed tones. Then it is confirmed. The Albizzi family, old money rivals who resent the Medici's populist power and new money influence, have taken control of the government. They have imprisoned Cosimo in the tower of the Palazzo Vecchio, accusing him of plotting to overthrow the Republic. You see the Albizzi's supporters, severe-looking men in dark wool, marching with an air of grim triumph. They represent the old Florence, the one suspicious of new ideas and new money. A cold dread seeps into Florence. It is a political crisis, but for you and everyone in the artistic community, it is an existential one. Your workshop's commissions are from the Medici. The grand projects all over the city, the libraries, the churches, the sculptures, are funded by Medici gold. With Cosimo in prison, that gold stops flowing. Overnight, the work halts. The master founder, who was preparing for another large bronze, lets his furnaces go cold. Your own master stares at a half-finished altarpiece, his brushes idle, a fine layer of dust beginning to settle on the vibrant, unfinished colors. The future, which had seemed so clear and bright, is now a terrifying void. The charge against Cosimo is treason. The punishment is death. The city holds its breath. Will the Albizzi dare to execute him? The crisis escalates. Through a combination of bribery and political maneuvering, Cosimo's sentence is commuted from death to banishment. He is exiled from Florence. You watch from a distance as he and his family leave the city. It is a somber, humiliating procession. The man who was the city's patron saint of the arts is now an outcast. Historians debate the true motives of the Albizzi. Were they genuinely acting as defenders of Florence's Republican liberties against a would-be tyrant? Or were they simply a jealous, entrenched oligarchy trying to crush a powerful rival? The truth, as always, is likely a complex mixture of both. But for you, the result is the same. The great engine of the Florentine Renaissance has just sputtered to a stop. A quiet panic sets in. Artists begin to pack their bags. One of your friends, a sculptor named Marco, tells you he is leaving for Padua. "There is no future here, Alessandro," he says, his voice low. "The air has changed. They want pious little saints again, not breathing men." Watching him leave feels like a piece of the city's soul is departing with him. Others, loyal to the Medici, follow Cosimo into exile. Venice, a rival republic, welcomes him with open arms. And here lies a curious historical footnote. During his year of exile, Cosimo didn't just sit and wait. He began commissioning art and architecture in Venice, hiring the architect Michelozzo to build a library for a monastery there. He essentially began to export the Florentine Renaissance, a little act of cultural revenge and a sign that his power was far from broken. Your master decides to wait. He has enough saved to keep the workshop open for a few months, but the mood is funereal. The vibrant, confident city you knew has become anxious and uncertain. The heady talk of humanism is replaced by nervous whispers about politics. The rivals of the Medici are now in charge, and they have little interest in pagan-inspired art or expensive philosophical projects. They favor the old ways, the more traditional pious art of your master's youth. It feels like the clock is being turned back. You walk through the Piazza della Signoria and look up at the tower where Cosimo was held. It seems to loom over the city, a symbol of the fragility of this entire enterprise. You realize that this golden age you're living in is not an inevitable tide of history. It is a delicate ecosystem, dependent on the wealth and vision of a single family, and it can be destroyed. For weeks, you do little more than clean the workshop, organize pigments, and prepare panels for commissions that may never come. You are an artist in a city that has suddenly lost its nerve. The silence in the workshop is the most terrifying sound you have ever heard. The silence in Florence lasts for a year. It is a year of anxiety and artistic stagnation. The Albizzi government proves to be unpopular and ineffective. The city's economy, heavily tied to the Medici Bank, begins to suffer. Trade slows. The workshops are quiet. The city feels gray, its vibrant spirit dulled. The people who saw Cosimo as a champion of the common man grow restless. The atmosphere of fear gives way to one of grumpy, simmering resentment. You learn a valuable lesson. Patrons need artists, but artists most certainly need patrons, especially patrons who pay on time. Then, in 1434, the political winds shift again, this time with the force of a hurricane. The government controlled by the Albizzi collapses. A new government, friendly to the Medici, is elected. Their first act is to recall Cosimo de' Medici from exile. His rivals, the Albizzi, are banished in his place. The exile is over. Cosimo is coming home. His return is not the quiet affair his departure was. It is a carefully stage-managed political triumph. It is a major, well-documented historical event that cemented Medici power for the next 60 years. The city erupts in celebration. Guilds march in procession, church bells ring, and the streets are decorated with flowers and banners. Temporary, triumphal arches, built of wood and plaster and painted to look like Roman marble, are erected along his route. You stop to look at one. It's painted with an allegory of prudence and fortitude, virtues the Romans prized, now explicitly linked to Cosimo. It's a fascinating and ephemeral form of Renaissance art, designed to be magnificent for a single day and to deliver a powerful political message. For you and the other artists, this is not just a political victory, it is a resurrection. The cloud of dread that has hung over the city lifts, replaced by a palpable wave of relief and euphoria. You stand in the crowd as Cosimo rides into the city, not as a king, but with the calculated humility of a pater patriae, a father of the country. He looks older, more serious, but his eyes have a glint of absolute victory. The roar of the crowd is deafening. The effect is immediate. The day after his return, the workshop is a hive of activity again. Messengers arrive, not just reopening old commissions, but issuing new ones. The money flows again, but this time it flows with more purpose, more confidence. Cosimo and his party are no longer just the dominant faction. They are the undisputed masters of Florence. And the art they commissioned now serves a dual purpose: to beautify the city and to function as magnificent propaganda for their regime. Historians still debate how Republican Florence truly was under Cosimo's gentle but firm grip. Was it a democracy or a carefully managed authoritarian state with a brilliant public relations department? Looking at the sheer volume of art he commissioned upon his return, you'd be tempted to vote for the latter. The half-finished altarpiece in your workshop is resumed with new vigor. The plans for the bronze statue are brought out again. But everything is grander now, more ambitious. The fear is gone, replaced by a swaggering confidence. If before the exile, the Renaissance was an exciting experiment, now it is official state policy. You feel the change in yourself. The year of uncertainty has hardened you. You understand the brutal connection between art and power. You are not naive anymore. You know that your ability to create beautiful things is tied to the political fortunes of a single banker. This knowledge doesn't make you cynical. It makes you pragmatic. It makes you work harder, eager to prove your worth in this new, supercharged environment. The reward for your loyalty and the city's is tangible. Cosimo doubles down on his projects. He funds the completion of Brunelleschi's dome. He commissions Donatello for more work. He pours money into his library of manuscripts. He is building a new Jerusalem in Florence, a city that will be the envy of the world, and every brick, every brushstroke will sing the glory of God and the Medici. You are swept up in this renewed wave of creation. The ordeal of the exile is over. You have survived. And as you dip your brush into a pot of brilliant vermilion, you feel the thrill of being on the winning side of history. The work is harder than ever. The deadline's tighter. But no one is complaining. The silence has been vanquished. Florence is loud again, with the sound of hammers and chisels, and it is the sweetest music you have ever heard. In the years following Cosimo's triumphant return, the city is a blur of creative fervor. You are no longer just an apprentice. You have honed your skills through fire and failure, and you are now a trusted assistant, a minor master in your own right. You have worked on frescoes, carved small decorative figures, and assisted in the design of ceremonial banners. And now, you have been given the greatest honor of your career so far. You are part of the team selected to decorate the private chapel in the very heart of Medici power, the Palazzo Medici itself. The project is a series of frescoes depicting the journey of the Magi, to be painted by the master Benozzo Gozzoli. But this is no ordinary religious scene. This is to be the Medici's personal and political testament, a glorious fusion of the sacred and the secular. The chapel is small, intimate, and walking into the space for the first time, you smell the sharp, clean scent of fresh plaster and feel the immense weight of the commission. This is not for a public church. This is for the private eyes of the most powerful family in the city. Failure here is not an option. Your specific task is to work on the background landscapes and some of the figures in the vast procession. The master, Gozzoli, directs every detail. The scene is meant to be a spectacular pageant. The three magi on their way to Bethlehem are depicted as fabulously wealthy kings, their procession snaking through a lush, idealized Tuscan landscape. But the true subject of the painting quickly becomes clear. This is not just about the three kings from the east. This is about the uncrowned kings of Florence. This is the well-known, iconic feature of these frescoes. They are filled with portraits of the Medici family and their allies. You see a young Lorenzo de' Medici, Cosimo's handsome grandson, portrayed as one of the Magi on a white horse. Cosimo himself is there, riding with a quiet dignity, leading the procession as if he were the true guide. It's an audacious move, placing your patrons directly into the biblical narrative. It sends a clear message. The Medici are not just patrons of holy art. They are participants in the sacred story itself. You work meticulously, applying the plaster for the day's fresco, the giornata, and then painting quickly before it dries. You also become skilled in applying gold leaf, another delicate, multi-step process. You carefully paint the areas to be gilded with a layer of reddish clay called bowl. Then, holding your breath, you breathe on a small section of the bowl to give it a slight, sticky moisture. You pick up a paper-thin sheet of pure gold with a special brush and gently lay it onto the damp bowl. It adheres instantly. The process is repeated hundreds of times, a patient building of divine light. It's here you notice one of the most curious and delightful aspects of the work. The frescoes are a catalog of the staggering wealth of Florence. The fabrics are rendered with such loving detail that you can almost feel the velvet and silk, the jewelry, the armor, the elaborate harnesses of the horses. It all serves as a massive, glorious advertisement for the quality of Florentine craftsmanship. The painting isn't just a work of devotion, it's a trade show brochure. There are even exotic animals painted into the procession, a leopard on a leash, a falcon on a wrist, subtle hints at the Medici's far-reaching international connections. You even help paint the master himself. Gozzoli, with a little wink to posterity, has included a self-portrait. He shows himself looking directly out at the viewer, his name proudly stitched onto his red cap. The artist is no longer an anonymous craftsman. He is a personality, a creator confident enough to sign his work within the frame of the most important commission in the city. This act, which would have been seen as impossibly arrogant a few decades ago, now feels normal. It's part of the new world you've helped create. Historians today debate the chapel's primary function. Was it a sincere space for private Medici devotion, a place for the family to pray and reflect? Or was it a masterful piece of political stagecraft, a semi-public reception room designed to overwhelm visiting dignitaries and diplomats with an undeniable statement of Medici wealth, piety, and power? As you stand on the scaffolding, carefully painting the glint of gold on a horse's bit, you know the answer is both. It is a prayer and a power play all at once. One evening, after the master has left, you stand alone in the center of the small, silent chapel. The painted procession surrounds you on 3 walls, a river of color and gold leaf that glitters in the candlelight. You are standing inside a jewel box. You have helped create this. You have painted the faces of power, the landscape of your home, and the story of your faith all into one seamless, breathtaking reality. This is the road back. You have taken all the lessons, the humanism, the perspective, the gritty reality of creation, and applied them to this masterpiece. You are no longer just making art. You are making history, one brushstroke at a time. The years pass like the slow, steady turning of a season. The Magi Chapel is completed and becomes a wonder of the city. You continue to work, your name now known in the guild, your hand sought for delicate background work and intricate details. You now have an apprentice of your own, a boy with wide eyes who smells of clay and turpentine, and you see your younger self in him. You teach him how to prepare a panel, how to grind colors, how to hold a brush. You are no longer the wide-eyed boy. You are a man, a master. You are Alessandro, and you have survived. You have endured the failures, the political upheavals, and the immense pressures of your craft. You have returned with the elixir. What is the elixir? It is not a thing you can hold. It is a way of seeing. One morning, you wake before dawn. You walk through the still, quiet streets of Florence, not to the workshop, but towards the river. The air is cool and damp. The sky is a soft, deep indigo, just beginning to blush with the first hints of pink and orange in the east. You stand on the Ponte Santa Trinita, and you look at your city, and you see it with new eyes. You see Florence not as a collection of streets and buildings, but as a complete work of art, a masterpiece you have had a small hand in creating. Your gaze is drawn, as always, to the cathedral. There, against the brightening sky, is the finished dome of Santa Maria del Fiore, Brunelleschi's dome. For 100 years, it was a gaping wound in the heart of the city, an impossible dream. Now, it is a reality, a perfect, soaring testament to human ingenuity. It is the symbol of this new age, the well-known and undisputed crown of Florence. You remember being a boy, staring at the empty space and hearing the old men say it could not be done. They were wrong. As you walk, you pass your first master's old workshop. You pause for a moment, looking at the familiar doorway. You remember the boy you were, dutifully sanding panels, his world small and circumscribed. You feel a wave of affection for that boy and for the old master who taught you your craft. You realize that the new art could only be born because of the solid foundation of the old. Your eyes drift to the stern, fortress-like facade of the Palazzo Vecchio, then to the elegant, rational lines of the Palazzo Medici. You see the slender silhouette of Giotto's bell tower. You see the rooftops of the workshops, the churches, the houses, and you see it all with an artist's eye. You see the play of light and shadow, the satisfying geometry of the intersecting lines, the harmony of the colors, the terracotta tiles, the gray Pietra Serena stone, the white marble. You are seeing the city in perfect perspective. You think about the art that is hidden inside these buildings. Donatello's David, confident and unsettling. Gozzoli's Magi, forever journeying in their gilded procession. The serene Madonnas of Fra Angelico, the fierce saints of Castagno. It is a city saturated with genius. But you also think of the things most people don't see. You think of the foundry fires and the molten bronze. You think of the smelly vats of the wool dyers by the Arno. You think of the quarries at Carrara, where men risk their lives to cut the white stone from the mountains. You think of the quiet, almost forgotten existence of the anti-Renaissance dissenters, the pious citizens who find the new art too worldly, too pagan, and who whisper that this celebration of man is an affront to God, a sentiment that would later explode in the bonfires of Savonarola. The ultimate legacy of this incredible century is something historians will debate forever. Was it a true golden age for all? Or was it the consolidation of a new kind of princely power, built on banking and branding? Was it the dawn of enlightened modernity, or a glorious but fleeting cultural bubble funded by a few powerful families in a single, fortunate city? You don't have the answers to these grand questions. The elixir you carry is simpler and yet more profound. It is the quiet, confident knowledge that the world is something to be observed, to be understood, to be captured. It is the understanding that beauty is not just a gift from God, but something that can be made through reason, through struggle, through mathematics, and through the stubborn, brilliant work of human hands. It is a new kind of faith, not one that replaces the old, but one that deepens it. It is a belief in human potential as an expression of the divine. The ability to create is humanity's way of participating in God's creation. The sun finally breaks over the hills, and its golden light floods the Arno, turning the water into a ribbon of molten gold. It catches the top of Brunelleschi's dome, setting it ablaze. Florence is waking up. The city, your city, has been reborn, and so have you. You turn from the bridge and walk towards the workshop, ready for the day's work, carrying the dawn of a new world inside you.